Okay, please let me know if the audio is working because we had trouble last time and I really need to know if the audio is working because that's the way it is. And let me try to turn this camera around a little bit so I'm more centered. And it's fighting me, of course, because it does. Hang on. This webcam is a menace. Let's see what I got there. Let's try the hand gestures. Yeah, it's functioning. Oh, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. I just want to get this freaking camera functioning now. Let's see what I can do with this. Uh, yeah, wonderful stuff. How is everybody? Um, Stop. There we go. I think that's as good as it's going to get. Let's try that. There we go. Yeah. Hi Clayton. Hi Tom. Hi Ralph. Hi Patrick. Hi Alistair. Hi Mr. Shannonite. Yeah. This is an unexpected live stream, and I'll tell you why it happened after I have a drink of water. Hi FG. And Lee. Yucky da, dude. Yeah, so here's what happened. Yesterday I did a video for the other channel, the walking channel, and I'm doing that progressive walk toward Melbourne from Werribee. I did 9 kilometers yesterday, and it was over some rough country. I mean, it wasn't even footing all the way. There were some dirt bits, there were some other rough bits, and I got pretty exhausted doing it, but I was successful. And I got tired, so I didn't get the video out that was supposed to come out this morning. Plan B, I did do a live stream, and that's what I decided to do. Got up early this morning. The sun's still not out. It's still quite dark here, but I'm doing a live stream. I'm feeling okay. One of my feet are a little sore. I think I've got a bit of muscle soreness in one of my feet. But 9 kilometers around the coastline, so I saw pelicans and swans and all sorts of cool things. So that video should turn out to be really good. And I'm kind of glad I did it. I haven't walked that far in about a decade. And so really was something special. Is everybody morning, Damien? How you doing? Everybody still with me? Because I've got an error message here. And I don't want that to happen. Okay, yeah, because there's a weird error message coming up. Great, thanks for that. Okay, I'm going to just tilt this screen back a bit because I'm having trouble reading it the way I squinted it. Yeah, so that's basically it. Did a lot of stuff yesterday, and that was the hardest walk. I've worked it out. I'm going to be doing 9 walks to get from Werribee to Melbourne. And the walk that I did yesterday is the longest one. So everything else is going to be easy compared to it. Damien's lying in a warm bed. Hi, time traveler. Yeah. So did that. Had a great time. Got home totally exhausted because it was weird. And the other weird thing too is yesterday it was like 1 degree when I got out of the car to do this walk. And today, same time of the morning, actually a little bit earlier, it's 14 degrees. So the weather is going mad here. So all good. A few interesting things happened as well on the weekend. Armin, one of the supporters of the channel, and he turns up on chat a lot, was actually in Melbourne from Germany. So Armin and I caught up on Saturday morning and had a great 4 or 5 hours just hanging out. And that was good. If anybody is in Melbourne, I really should arrange a meetup. Very cold in WA, says Damien. I really should arrange a meetup of some kind because Armin and I went for breakfast at Sonali, which is one of the best places to have breakfast in Melbourne, down in South Melbourne. And then we got in the car. I actually took him to one of the iconic places in Melbourne, JB Hi-Fi, up at High Point. and we both bought some movies. We hung around. We talked a lot. We talked a hell of a lot. We were just kind of unloading our lives on each other and having a terrific time with it. And that was my weekend. I had a very, very full weekend. Tomorrow, Claus says, science and nature never cease to amaze me. The difference in the weather in the northern and southern hemispheres. It's summer here and winter in Australia. Oh, it's definitely winter in Australia. Um, very, very. I hate winter, which is probably one of the reasons why it's good that I'm actually doing this walk in winter, because one of the problems I get in winter is seasonal affect disorder. And if I get out when it is sunny and spend hours in the sunshine, which I need to do on the walk, not necessarily hours, the 4 or 5 kilometer ones take an hour and a bit. But if I do that, I'm less affected by seasonal affect disorder. I started the walks on the beginning of June, and before that, I got the SADs very, very profoundly, more than I ever had. And so I'm doing what I can to deal with that stuff. Blistering hot in Kansas City, 32 degrees centigrade. That's not blistering hot. Blistering hot's 40. But I understand that everybody has a different feeling for heat. And 32 degrees is comfortable here. And people love 32 degrees. People are getting up this morning ready to go for work in Melbourne and just longing for 32 degrees. DB Cooper apologizes for his country's current behavior. DB Cooper, it's not your country. It's the dickheads at the top. I know there are a lot of people of goodwill across the United States. Many, many of them, and many more of them than the nutcases. It's just the nutcases are louder, and the nutcases are persistent, and the nutcases are lacking in empathy. So no need to apologize. I've also got a coffee here. Now, this coffee is actually Japanese coffee from a place called Muji. And that comes in a little bag, and the bag clips over your coffee mug, and then you pour hot water over it, and the coffee grounds get soaked and fall into the coffee. It's not as good as normal coffee, but it's really good for caffeinating you in a hurry. So I do have a movie haul. Clayton says way too many, absolutely. And it is like, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. It is like what happens in Bad Day at Blackrock, where Spencer Tracy is talking to Anne Francis and says, I don't know what happened here, but the gorillas have taken over. And that just rings so strongly to modern circumstances. Tom says, went to see 28 Days Later a few days ago. Danny Boyle is a good once again. Do check it out when it comes to your local cinema. I'm going to try to see it tomorrow, Tom. I'm going to grab a couple of hours tomorrow and go to the local and see it. Damien has a roster day off for work. Great one, mate. Good. I was actually reading a news article about 28 Days Later before I came on stream. And one of the things people are complaining about, and people will find things to complain about, it's the nature of things that they do. They're complaining about zombie dicks in 28 years later. Now, I've got no problem with zombie dicks. Keep them away from me. I don't want no festering, rancid, decaying cock in my face. But as a part of a movie like this, why the hell not? So, Tom, how about the zombie dicks? I'm told that they feature prominently in a couple of scenes. Haven't got a problem with it, but I love the fact that there's a moral panic about that. So, I was trying to read a little bit of news before I came on stream. And the first news I get is Danny Boyle talking about zombie dicks. Got to love that. By the way, super chats are, DB Cooper says, clutching my pearls. By the way, super chats are available. Down next to the chat thing, there's that little dollar sign. Does help the channel out. And keeps body and soul together, though I don't believe in soul, so it keeps body together. Let me see if I can find some more news because hi, Dick. Yeah, didn't know I was live streaming today. You didn't get the notification. There was a notification. I put this up about 8 hours ago. But yeah, I'm live streaming because I got too physically exhausted doing my walk yesterday to finish the video I should have finished. And I'll give you something behind the curtain. Most of my videos are last minute. I kind of watch the movies and make my notes, but the recording of them usually happens about 3 o'clock in the afternoon before the morning they're active. So from 3 o'clock until about midnight sometimes, I'm either recording videos or editing and uploading them. It's just the way I work. Tom says, I never noticed them. Someone is exaggerating about the zombie digs. I was actually looking forward to them, but we'll see how we go. Dalek Lives Matter says, avoid reading anything about the end of 28 years later. I will. Dick's missed the first 10 minutes of the stream. That's okay. All it was me waffling about the weather, pretty much, and the fact that I spent a lot of time yesterday walking around, looking at pelicans, amongst other things. Yeah, just to finalize on the walk thing. This walk was great. It was much more interesting than all the previous walks because of the wildlife and the waterfront. And driving back from the walk, well, yeah, I drove back from Seahome Station. I was kind of impressed with myself how far I had actually walked. When you're walking a long distance through a city, I'll use a city as an example. You learn and you know where you're walking at a granular level when you walk rather than drive or take public transport. There are all these little details and this texture, and it's like high resolution. You know a land in high resolution when you walk across it. And that's the takeaway I'm getting from this, that there are things I saw and things I found out about on my walks that I wouldn't have known taking any other means of transport. And so for me, that's a blessing. Dalek Lives Matter says, to Tom Stein, it's a quick flash, but definitely a baby arm holding an apple. So it's a fairly reasonable Savaloy we're talking about there. Damien says, Heather and I enjoy watching your walks. Yeah, I've got one that's going to be out tonight, your time, Damien. And I've got the one I've just finished yesterday. I've already edited that. And that one's going to be up probably Friday. Floyd says, wanted to say hello, Terry. Glad to hear you enjoyed your walk. Looking forward to seeing the footage. Yeah, Floyd, it's great. And the thing is, it's actually good for my health. And that's the kind of hidden agenda there, is to get a bit fitter, because I really want to push the travel channel. And in order to do that, I've got to be fitter than I was when I started the travel channel. I've got to be able to walk around a city and talk, or walk around a country place. I've got a video I'm planning, and I'm kind of negotiating that with Sal, where I go from, and I'll give you the clue. I go from Melbourne to Port Augusta in South Australia for $5, because there is a fare I can get, which will take me about 900 kilometers, maybe less, maybe 600 kilometers for $5. Hi, Boomer Doug. How you doing? You set alarm for me this time. Hi from Adelaide. We can face the apocalypse together. Yeah, the apocalypse thing's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because there are a few people on social media who, because Trump bombed Iran, are saying that World War III is going to happen, and they're expressing concerns about it. And I can understand that. I mean, there's scary shit in the world, and the scary shit is in our faces because of how news media works. And so it's no longer at a distance, and it's no longer censored the way things were, say, in World War II. Everything that happens in the world is in our face if we open our eyes in a certain direction. And so that is scary for people. So I thought I'd make a little bit light of it, basically because I don't think World War III is going to happen. It would affect real estate values too much. But hi, Cinema Dave, how you doing? Yeah, Damien, $5. Um, yeah, so that's the thing. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm hoping that wiser heads, not Trump and Bibi and people like that, but a granular level will prevail. And I sincerely hope that happens. Dalek Lives Matter says, I watched Phantom 1998 recently. That's a film crying out for a director's cut if there's is cut scenes. Yeah, I don't mind the Phantom movie. In fact, Billy Zane was in Sydney 2 days ago doing a big media convention, and he had some things to say about that. Tom says, I did a lot of walking around yesterday's Mermaid Parade in Coney Island. For the first time in its 43 years, they picked a porn star as queen of the festival. Why not? I mean, culturally, Australia has an attitude, or at least it should, and the wiser people have an attitude that sex work is work. It's a legitimate job. And whether you're selling, it doesn't matter which part of your body you're renting out to somebody. Sex work is work. So having a porn star as the queen of the Mermaid Parade, fantastic. And it also jams it to people who think that their morality should be everybody's morality. Glad about that. Dave, I'm thankful for YouTube and your videos. Keep me away from the news, says Dave. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We will put a line under talking about the apocalypse and talking about the bad shit. And we're going to talk about movies. Dalek Lives Matter says, I meant Phantom starring Ben Affleck, the Lovecraftian horror. Okay, I apologize, Dalek Lives Matter. Had the wrong movie. Damien says, Trumpet Action reminds me of Martin Sheen in Dead Zone. Yeah, that one's been made before. But yeah, I'm kind of I'm putting a line under that. I'll do the movie hall because that's fun. Let me just get the first lot out. So, as I said earlier, Armin and I hung out on Saturday and had a good time. Went to JB Hi-Fi, had fantastic coffee, fantastic food, and he gave me some movies. I gave him some movies. He gave me some movies. Time Traveler says, I love We Are the Damned, but cannot find the book it's based on, Children of Light. Anyone know where I can find it? I'd suggest eBay would be my first option, or then ABE book. There's a thing called ABE Books, at least here in Australia, which sells used books. But maybe use DuckDuckGo as a search engine rather than using Google search, and see if you can find a copy of it. Brian Dawkins, for Canadian $5. I've got a couple of nice frame grabs from your walk, your Curacao moment, and the blackbird standing on the post picking at his feet. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. That was a lovely moment. I mean, those reads were fantastic and really surprising. I wasn't expecting like reeds blowing in the breeze on that walk. It surprised the shit out of me. Boomer Doug says, I really enjoyed your walking to Melbourne videos on Terry Travels, mate. Thank you. I'm enjoying them too. But I am taking a couple of days off after the 9 kilometres I walked yesterday. So, movie hall. Armin gave me some stuff. I'm going to go from the familiar to the unfamiliar. He gave me a German version of a movie I had on DVD, but I didn't have a Blu-ray. The Night Porter, with Dirk Bogarde and Charlotte Rampling. Controversial film in its time, but I remember seeing it originally in the cinemas. But this one is a really fascinating film, and I think it's about time I rewatched it. There's the back. It's all in German, which is cool. And the nicest thing about it is it's a slimline case. It's not going to take up too much of the shelf space, which I appreciate. Inside, pretty much the same, without the censorship classification, so it's got a reversible cover. But getting a copy of The Night Porter was kind of cool. And it reminded me that there are films from the 70s I still need to rewatch. And I'm looking forward to rewatching that one, even though the subject matter is disturbing to many people. Sip of coffee. Then I got seasons 1 or 2 of Gareth Edwards' TV series, which I keep hearing about, but I haven't seen. Gangs of London, seasons 1 and 2 on Blu-ray. I know season 3's just come out, but looking forward to this one. And there were a couple of art cards in it as well. Lots of brutal violence, which is something now and then you don't mind. And I've got 2 seasons of that to play with as well, which is terrific and a little bit surprising. Armin said, "What did you want me to bring over from Germany?" And I said, "Surprise me." And indeed he has. So I'll go through those as well. Anybody seen Gangs of London? Because I'm looking forward to it. Violence in the city. Then he gave me this, which is actually a version of Die Nibelung. Like with Siegfried and the dragon and the Valkyries and all that kind of jazz. It's a movie called Hagen. And Ahmed tells me this one is a reinterpretation of Die Nibelung. Fritz Lang made a version of this in the 1920s, which has got a fantastic dragon in it. But I'm looking forward to that too. It's from Constantine Films, and it does have English subtitles, for which I am grateful because it's going to confuse the shit out of me if I don't have them. So yeah, that one I really am looking forward to. That's probably for me the one I'm most looking forward to because it's something unfamiliar to me and something from a different cultural viewpoint. Floyd says it's getting hotter and drier here in Texas. Really feels like it's going to be a bad summer. I prefer winter to summer. I can always put more clothes on, but you can only take off so much. Yeah, I'm a summer guy, but I appreciate that some people prefer winter. And when you are out in somewhere really hot, and it's unrelenting, it can get you down. I know up in Darwin in the Northern Territory, they have a thing called the build-up, which is when it's not raining and the rain isn't cooling things down, but the weather gets increasingly more humid and hot. And so people are getting very sticky hot. And the build-up has been known to drive people crazy. And then suddenly the build-up breaks and you get the rainy season where it rains 4 times a day torrentially and everybody's happy. And the way they tell when the wet season is going to break is dragonflies start appearing in the ponds around Darwin and up in the territory. And so when you start seeing the dragonflies, you know you're less than a week away from the weather breaking. So hot weather affects people across the planet. Damien says Dirk Bogarde was doing interesting stuff late in his career. Yeah, anything from, say, Victim onwards is fascinating in Dirk Bogarde's career. Dave says, we're in a heat dome here in New York, very hot and humid. How hot's it getting, Dave? What's the temperature in real terms, not in Fahrenheit? Because I'd be interested. I was in New York in 98 in the middle of summer, and it got up to about 40 degrees centigrade. And I was walking down Manhattan for 2 or 3 days, just grabbing bottles of cold water from outside bodegas and giving the guy a buck. Yeah, I know how hot it can get in the city, but out where you are, I'm sure it can get equally hot. One of the other things I got, by the way, while we're still on the movie hall, I've been hearing things about this, and it came up on my suggested purchase thing. and I bought it, but I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I don't know whether I like these films or not. 3 movies from the late 50s and 60s. The Aztec Mummy Collection, Curse of the Aztec Mummy, Robot versus the Aztec Mummy, and Wrestling Women versus the Aztec Mummy. They're all Mexican horror films with an Aztec mummy in them. I don't know whether I like them, to be honest. I'm kind of ambivalent about them. Dave says it's 32 degrees C here, but I do love the hot weather. Yeah, 32 is not too bad, even with the humidity. Patrick says it's just over 37 here. Yeah, that's starting to get to drink extra water and stay in the shade kind of summer. But yeah, let me know what you think of these ones. They're the K. Gordon Murray versions of them, which were dubbed into English and altered a bit in the 1960s. But I'm still on the fence about these. Phyllis says we're having humidity-driven temperature heat indices around 40 degrees here in the North American deep south. Says Phyllis. Yeah, that's where it gets difficult, and there is that point at which your body can't handle it. It doesn't matter how much you drink, your body can't process it, and that's difficult. KN says I could not live with that constant heat and humidity. I'm too Celtic for that. I like to be like a wet sponge walking around all day. The thing that I found out, particularly with hot and humid weather, is we found this out from a pharmacist in Darwin on how to handle the high humidity and the high temperatures in Darwin. Drink twice as much water and walk 20% slower was the advice we got. And it paid off. Within 2 or 3 days, we'd acclimatise as you can. Problem is that I'd get in the car after being out in the weather, turn on the air conditioning, and my glasses would fog up with condensation instantly. Or the other way around, if I was in an air conditioned building and walked outside, bam, instant glaucoma eyes on the glasses. So that's the only downside I found to that. Brian, okay, I live in Ontario. Let me start again. I live in Ontario, Canada, so I was never lucky enough to see a platypus living in Australia. Have I ever seen one in the wild? And Canadian $5 tip. Thank you. Yeah, my local creek, the Werribee River, which is a creek for most of its length, has platypi in it, and I've seen them, I think, twice. In fact, from my house, and I'm not going to like dox myself, but from my house, I can walk 10 minutes to the river, and the river has become healthy. There's been a lot of remediation work on keeping the Werribee River healthy, and it's got platypi in there. And they're very shy, they're very elusive, but occasionally you see them just pop up out of the water. They live in underwater burrows with entrances underwater on the banks of the river. And yeah, they're around here. In fact, Werribee has a little statue on the street of a platypus, of platypuses dancing, 2 or 3 platypuses just dancing. So yeah, we have them, and they're local. We also have echidnas, we have possums. In fact, 10 minutes drive from here, we also have elephants and giraffes because Werribee Zoo is a 10-minute drive from my place. And they've just moved all the elephants from other zoos in Victoria to the open range zoo at Werribee. We haven't seen them yet. I'm going to do a video about it for the other channel. But we've got all sorts of wildlife in my hood. We've got meerkats and we've got gorillas and we've got other apes and we've got wild African wild dogs. We've got everything here. Just some of them are kind of in an enclosure. Damien says, I'm a winter person. Fair enough. Tom says, avoid sugary drinks. I always avoid sugary drinks. I don't drink sugary drinks. And I don't drink artificial sweetened drinks. My main go-to are bottles of water. And the only sweet thing I've drunk lately is last night I was feeling a bit mellow, so I poured myself a large shot glass of Fireball whiskey. Time Traveler says, have I seen the Southern Hemisphere nova yet? It's in the southeast of Antares in the Lupus constellation. Sure, there'll be a science fiction video about nova zombies in Australia soon. No, but I'm going to look that up, Time Traveler, because nobody's told me about it. We're just getting news about all the shit happening in the Northern Hemisphere. We're not getting that news. Just give me a moment to do a search. 3 days ago, an unexpected nova just appeared in the night sky. You can see it with the naked eye. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, cool. So basically, a star blew up in the Southern Hemisphere sky. Let's hope it didn't have anything around it that could look up and go, what's that? Patrick says, we get roadrunners and coyote here in Albuquerque. Acme does big business here. Yeah, I haven't actually been to Albuquerque, but I have flown over it. It looked like a whole bunch of dartboards in the desert. Time Traveler says, zombies. Let's hope they're slow zombies because I couldn't handle fast zombies. DB Cooper says, 57 years of living in Portland, Oregon, where it rains more than Seattle makes me prefer the warm weather. Portland sounds cool. I spent a week in Seattle and I went through Portland because I was on a train. But I think Washington State in some ways is a lot saner than other parts of the USA. Okay, and says, how did Coyote pay for all that stuff he bought? It's simple. Bitcoin. And also, there is that movie that I think they are going to eventually release, Acme versus the Coyote, where they do the court case about the Coyote's flawed Acme products. And the Coyote basically sues the Acme Corporation about it. No, Bitcoin is the one that the Roadrunner uses. While he is a super genius, he has lots of patents. Well, the Acme Corporation has a lot of patents, yeah. I wouldn't mind watching that movie, by the way. Brian, you keep being generous. I'd like to see the statue of the dancing platypus. I think it'd be fun to have a frame grab for my collection. Let me just see if I can send you a link. Come on, there we go. I'm actually using DuckDuckGo as my search engine at the moment because I'm a bit pissed off with Google. There we go. Okay. Yep, here we go, Brian. There's a link. It's in that group of photos there. Time Traveler says the portable AC we use was invented by Willis Carrier. Let's thank him. We've got ducted evaporative cooling here, which does enough to keep us going during the summertime. Dick says, you ever find out what the technical problem was with the last live stream? There was a problem with the drivers for the audio. And I've actually done 4 tests before I did this live stream to make sure that I'd fix the problem. It was one of those things where I frigged around with it enough that it finally worked. And I'm not sure exactly why everything glitched like that. I suspect it's something to do with Copilot AI, which they put onto my operating system without my will. And the way that listens to what you're saying and listens to what you're doing and uses your microphone without telling you. Something like that. So I've kind of disconnected Copilot from using my audio, and that seems to have fixed the problem. Tom says, we have a few Acme supermarkets here in Connecticut. I'll be careful on that. Supermarkets we have Time Traveler says, what do you think of Disney's lawsuit against the Gen AI company for scraping their content without permission? I think Disney stole so much stuff they should keep their bloody mouth shut. Disney stole the Lion King from Tezuka's Kimber the White Lion. They stole things that were in public domain and grabbed them. Um, Disney just wants to promote Disney, and Disney gets most of its money from merch. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Disney, to be honest with you. We had the choice to go to Tokyo Disney, and we went to a ninja museum in Osaka instead and had a great time. Dick says, that looked real nightmare from this end for you. Yeah, the audio problems last time around really frustrated me. And eventually, as most of you know, I had to use my phone to do a live stream, which I've got fully charged now in case everything went tits up here. But that's just the way it is. Occasionally, technology lets us down. But the rule I've learned from this is I'll do a test before I do a live stream. Phyllis says, Ninja Museum, was everything there invisible? No, it was great. We were in Osaka for a few days. We took 2 hour, we changed trains 3 times in 2 hours and went into rural Iga Prefecture. And there's a dead mountain that had been flattened off. And there's a Japanese castle on the top of it. There's a museum to the great poet Basho, who lived around that area. And you walk up the hill from the station. The station's all decked out with ninja stuff. There are ninja dolls, life size, hanging from the rafters inside the station. And you walk up the hill, and we go, we don't know what this is going to cost. What's it going to cost us to go to the Ninja Museum? $5 Australian to get into the museum. Extensive stuff. They've got a ninja house set up with hidden weapons. They've got a hidden exit to the house. And the key to the exit is there are a bunch of leaves on the veranda. One of the leaves is actually made of wood, and you insert it in a slot in the wall, and the secret entrance slides open. And there are hidden weapons all over the place. There are hidden ninjas all over the place. And then you get a ninja show for an extra $3, where a whole bunch of ninjas fight each other, and they give you shuriken to throw at a target. Fantastic day. We had a great time there, and everybody was so welcoming and lovely. And there were no people there really. There were like 3 other couples, and all of them were Australian for some reason. But if you can get to the Iga Ninja Museum at some stage, you're going to have a great time, and it doesn't cost you much at all. The train fares, they were about $50, but we got to see a lot of rural Japan we wouldn't have seen otherwise. I really recommend it. It's a fantastic little place. In fact, I think I've got the link saved, so I'll post a link just so you can look at it for your own curiosity. This is a place, fantastic. And there are kind of ninja and samurai museums in Shinjuku and places like that in Tokyo, but they're fake. And they're not in the locations where ninjas hung out. But the Iga Ninja Museum is just the best. And we found about it by accident. I was just doing a bit of Google searching and found it. Brian, again, in the United States, Ketchup Entertainment, small company, picked up Coyote versus Acme and plan to release it in 2026. Good, I'm glad. I don't like the idea of making a movie and then because of corporate jiggery pokery, it never gets released. I think that's dishonest. It's the same with the Batwoman movie. That didn't get released because of a corporate takeover of Warner Brothers. It's just ridiculous. Mrs. Chanelite says, I'm sorry I'm late. We're just sorting out Disney's mail. Can you please stop sending Mickey a noose every month? He's been suspended animation since the first one. No, I'm not even going to invest in that level of hatred of Disney. I mean, I don't like the fact that Disney took over Marvel because I do like Marvel. And I think Disney have a sensibility that I don't particularly like. They've still got a legacy of that white early 20th century headspace that Walt Disney had. There's still that prudishness and that lack of vision that makes Disney less than it would be otherwise. Time Traveller said, wanted to see the Camouflage Museum, but we couldn't find it. Damien says, that would go see the Japan. A friend of mine got a one-on-one tour of State Library in Japan. Got to see all the first editions of manga titles. Yeah, Japan really embraces its culture so strongly, and I really like that. I mean, even if you go into the most crowded parts of Tokyo, there'll be a little interstitial place with a shrine somewhere. You can be walking through the sleaziest part of Golden Guy or the sleaziest part of Kabukicho. And there's a little Zen garden and a shrine there somewhere. And the moment you go into where the shrine is, for some reason, all the city sounds disappear around you. It's fantastic. Brian, again, I've been waiting since 2010 for the film Hippie Hippie Shake with Cillian Murphy. Is that the one based on the Australian guy's thing? I think it is. The poster for the new Fantastic Four movie looks great, says Tom. Let's hope the movie measures up to it. I'm hearing good things about both Fantastic Four First Flight and the Superman movie, which I'm going to see both of them. I'm hoping that my friend Grant gets the double pass to the red carpet premiere of Fantastic Four, in which case I'm going with him, and looking forward to that. But and I also want to get the lanyard and the extra merch they give you. But yeah, I'm locked in on those. I think they're the kind of movies that I really like to just sit back and let wash over me. Keith says, hey, greetings from Yorkshire, England. Cool. Half of my ancestry is from Yorkshire. The other half's Welsh. A little more than half's Welsh. But my grandparents were from York. And my great-grandfather on my father's side owned a pub in York. Time Traveller says, I want to see more independent science fiction films from outside Europe and America. Are there local film student productions near me? Not for science fiction. There tend to be a few horror sells. You can make a horror movie for $1 million and end up retiring on it because younger people love horror films. One of my nieces, Kalina, is a mad horror movie fan. She's 21 and she loves the terrifying movies. She loves all the horror films. Young people love horror films. So science fiction, less so. And science fiction is harder to do the world building on. To do a decent science fiction movie, you've really got to put in a lot of money and a lot of effort to create the world around it. Dick says, went to Amsterdam once and there was a museum for every other street covering a whole bunch of weird and wonderful things as well as the norm. Yeah. Hi, Emmy. Do a whole episode on new indie student horror. I'm not tapped into that. I find out when Umbrella releases it on disc, and I will review anything I get that comes across my path on that. As far as museums are concerned, Dick, when we were in Paris, we went to Pigalle, and we went to the Museum of Eroticism, which isn't there anymore. It went bankrupt. But they had 7 floors of erotic art from basically Neolithic art of women and dicks, all the way to La Belle Epoque France brothel menus. Everything you could ever want to see about eroticism was in this museum. I've still got the brochure for it. It was incredible, and the history of sex as a business in one building was amazing. Dippy Cooper says, did I get a chance to watch La Moustache? No, I've got a copy of it, but I haven't had time to watch it yet. I'm getting really busy at the moment with the 3 videos a week for this channel and the extra video or 2 for the other one. Time Traveller says, soft market only after the business is concluded. How does erotica go out of business? I think it's a museum that went out of business. And they auctioned off all of the memorabilia because there are collectors of eroticism and erotic art. And the museum had a lot of it. It had incredible stuff. photographs. It actually had one of the wall menus from a 19th century Paris brothel. Incredible stuff. Keith says, recently saw the old movie The Telltale Heart based on a Poe story. Not seen that movie in about 60 years. Yeah, is that the one from about the late 1940s? A fairly small budget movie. It's very atmospheric. But yeah, Poe stories are having a little bit of a resurgence, kind of like the Cthulhu mythology is. Let's see, I've got one more thing in the movie hall that I forgot about. Actually, one and a half. Last night, I dragged out my Criterion edition of The Seventh Victim and watched that. Mark Robinson's The Seventh Victim. Keith says, Telltale Heart from 1960 starring Lawrence Payne. Okay, cool. Seventh Victim, I hadn't seen in a few years. Incredible movie. Low budget, but it's got such a bleak worldview. And a bunch of Satanists who have taken a vow not to kill anybody. And the vow doesn't include encouraging people to kill themselves. Really amazing movie. And it's on this disc with I Walk with the Zombie. Just incredibly underrated movie, The Seventh Victim. And it's got a kind of fatalistic style all its own, filmed on studio backlots, but some really interesting secondary characters as well. Yeah, you've got to pick this one up, Damien, because from what I've seen of both of them, really nice copies of them. They're not shabby, scratchy, old copies. And The Seventh Victim really hits hard. Thomas says, The Seventh Victim is my favourite Val Lewton movie. That subway scene and the shower scene are very scary. The shower scene's actually from The Cat People. Brian says, Hippie Hippie Shakers about the Australian people who had a newspaper in London. Oh, yeah. You can actually find copies of that magazine in online in archives. I think archive.org's got them. And reading those copies was fantastic. Damien says, the ABC showed Wake in Fright last night. Cool. He says, Val Lewton, nice, loved The Body Snatcher. Yeah, The Body Snatcher was great. Boomer Doug says, I thought I knew movies. You always come up with gems I never heard of. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I mean, that's what part of what this channel is about, is just finding the good shit and telling people about the good shit. Because increasingly, my philosophy on the channel is there's no use knowing stuff if you don't share it. There are people who know lots of things and then hold it to themselves and keep their secret hidden knowledge. I'm not like that. I really don't enjoy not sharing the good stuff and not saying to people, hey, this is very cool, or this isn't very cool, but it's got moments of coolness about it. It's a lot of fun to do that. Yep. I introduced Time Traveler to the snorkel. I think I did that on a podcast. The snorkel's a really weird murder mystery in a sense, but with Peter Van Eyck, yeah. I'm going to have to rewatch that because I've got a copy of it. Dick says, had the spaghetti western Terence Hill afternoon after finding a Japanese DVD of My Name is Nobody, followed by A Genius, Two Partners, and a Dupe. Cool. We used to get Terence Hill westerns at the cinema when I was a kid. And it took us years to figure out they were dubbed because the knowledge wasn't available to dumb kids like me. Kayan says, if two Blu-rays can be considered a haul, I got Peeping Tom secondhand and upgraded my DVD of the Amicus film From Beyond the Grave to Blu-ray. Nice one. I got the 4K of Peeping Tom a couple of months ago. I haven't put it in the player yet. But the original version I got on DVD was so shitty low res that I really wanted to upgrade it, and 4K came along, and I got it in one of those buy one get one free deals. I'm very, very happy about that. The other thing I got in the haul, I went down to JB Hi-Fi with Armin, as I said, and Imprint Asia, and they had 20% off, which is the big selling point for me getting this. Erotic Ghost Story Trilogy. With the Erotic Ghost Story 1, 2, and 3. They're Hong Kong films from the 90s. Category 3, so there is a little bit of nudity and busted substances. But I saw this one on DVD. This one I haven't seen. Tons of extras, and I'm going to dip into them when I get some breathing space in the next few days. And just let myself recover from the walk I did yesterday. But Imprint Asia is doing some good stuff. Imprint isn't sending me the Imprint Asia stuff, which is fair enough. They only send it a certain amount of review copies, and they're picking and choosing who they send them to these days. But I think I'm going to enjoy Erotic Ghost Story, and not just for the boobs. I always like the action scenes as well. Tom says there's a shower scene in The Seventh Victim. I've seen it, and it's and the interesting thing about the shower scene is there something supernatural going on there? Is Mrs. Reddy actually there, or is she projecting to the shower curtain that Kim Hunter is behind? There's a slightly creepy supernatural aspect to that, where you never actually see the character behind the shower curtain. And it may well have been an influence on Psycho. Who knows? Brian, you're going to bankrupt yourself, man. But thank you. I like hanging out with you, but I hope contributions were enough to get you a decent treat at the end of the month. They will be. That will definitely help knock down the credit card debt somewhat. Time Traveler says, Peeping Tom, written by an ex-SOE cryptographer, Leo Marx. Read High is an amazing memoir between Silk and Cyanide. Cool. Dick says, and sorry to bring up zombie movies, but also watched The Girl with all the Gifts recently. Yeah, Sally watched that for the first time. I'd seen it a couple of years ago. But Sal dragged out the DVD, or the Blu-ray of The Girl with All the Gifts, and she really liked it. Yeah, it's an underrated movie and doesn't get enough love, and it gives an original look at zombies. And it flips the narrative in a really fascinating way. Very feminist as well, which I'm fully on board with. But it just flips things. And The Girl with All the Gifts, very underrated. People talk about the 28 days, 28 weeks, 28 years series, which was good. But I think The Girl with All the Gifts is at least as entertaining and at least as good a zombie movie. Let's see. Oh, cool. They're starting to release stuff. I'm looking at news here. They're starting to release set photos of Daredevil Born Again, which they're making at the moment, which I love. Girl with All the Gifts uses cordyceps before The Last of Us, I think. It did. Dick picked it up because of my recommendation. Thanks, Dick. I'm glad that it was useful to you. Yeah, it does, and it does them in a very different way. It's really interesting film, done on a fairly small budget too. It wasn't overly financed. Cool. I'm looking forward to Daredevil Born Again Series 2 because I really like Series 1. And what I'm going to do after I finish the live stream is I've got 2 episodes of Poker Face I haven't seen. So I'm going to binge them while I'm just resting today. Today I've got to go out later in the day. Got to take Sal to an appointment and head down to Williamstown. But apart from that, I'm going to be chilling. What are you talking about, Clayton? I'm happy to answer, but just let me know. Oh, buffering. Am I buffering for other people or just for him? Okay, hopefully not. Is anybody else getting buffering? No, it just seems to be you, Clayton, unfortunately. I'm sorry I did two question marks there. Um, Boomer Doug, just a tiny thank you for your channel. I'm also a Patreon member. You are, Doug. And thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Keith says, I saw the thumbnail for this live stream. I thought it said pre-eclipse live stream. So I thought, oh, Terry's going to see a total eclipse. No, apocalypse and eclipse are different things. Sal's doing fine. Sal's sleeping at the moment. She had a couple of late nights, but she's sleeping at the moment. But she will I'm just cutting her some slack because I popped this live stream unexpectedly yesterday. I didn't have plans to do it. I was going to do the other video, but that didn't happen. So I said, well, listen, I don't need you moderating. Just, sleep in. We'll sort out the rest of the day once I finish the live stream. Yeah, you kind of negotiate those things in a relationship. But how's the weather in Dover, Dick? Where the White Cliffs are. Every second travel vlog I see has got the White Cliffs of Dover in it. Hi, Henrik. Which comedy team do you think is funny? Terence Hill and Bud Spencer or Cheech and Chong? I think Cheech and Chong for me, but if you want to go funniest comedy team, you can't go past Morecambe and Wise. Eric and Ernie just had such a smooth rapport, and the silliness and the charm of both of them really worked for me. Time Traveler says, do you feel any unusual effects from the lupus nova? Any cravings for human flesh? No, but to be honest with you, I'm feeling a bit weird from having done that long hike yesterday. And it'd be hard to differentiate the symptoms of one from the other. David says, on the topic of erotica, I'm going to wait for that. Carol apologizes. She had to go to bed. Well, give her a hug for me, Dick. You two have supported the channel enormously. Laurel and Hardy, says Keith. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, they had the rapport as well, but I think Morecambe and Wise is just magic. David says, keep laughing with Morecambe and Wise with Glenda Jackson. Yeah, which ended up getting Glenda Jackson an Oscar because somebody put her in a comedy role. And people went, I didn't know she was funny. And she was funny. David says, can't do much better than Mochi Ceramics from South America. And ME says, you should get a bike for the other channel. I'm looking to get an e-bike, but the other channel isn't monetized. So if I end up getting any money for the other channel when it ends up being monetized in the future, I'm going to put it away for an e-bike. Gethin Pierce, happy Saturday for very dark and rainy South Wales. Yucky da, dude. It was only 2 days ago I got sunburned from being out for 2 hours. David, don't worry about the typos. Well, dark and rainy. It was dark and rainy here a few days ago as well. Yesterday it was cold. Today it's unseasonably warm. It's just all over the place everywhere, and we've just got to roll with that. Dick says, we had some very hot weather in Dover. Then last weekend had a very big storm which caused a lot of flooding and went back to warm. Well, I hope everyone's okay up there because, flooding, never fun. FG says, always love the two Ronnies. Yeah, the writing on the two Ronnies was fantastic. The four candle sketch is just magic. Tom says, what do you think of the Australian band of the Vinyls? Went to see them in New Haven 32 years ago. They were amazing. I had tears of joy running down my face. Yeah. I Touch Myself still plays a lot here. Not particularly my bag, but I respect it. They're fantastic. Gethin Pierce says, I'm all right. I live near the top of a hill. Cool. That's the way to do it. It's like I did this global warming search on where I live. And fortunately, we're about 17 meters above sea level where I live. And so if we get unreasonable climate change and sea level rise. My house gets higher in value because it gets closer and closer to being beachside. Damien said, I picked up the JB2 Ronnie's box set. Cool. Keith says, on one of my walks, I mentioned I'm 68. I was born in May 1957, so I think you're just 2 or 3 weeks older than me. Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, about 2 or 3 weeks. I keep forgetting how old I am because it's not really something that pings my radar a lot. And yesterday in particular, I did the walk, and it was 9 kilometers, and it was a hard walk. I mean, toward the end, there was a bit where I had to detour 2 kilometers to get to where I needed to go. And it was only when I was waiting for the bus and they gave me a cookie. There was a bus replacement for the train, and the bus and transport people were giving out cookies. I thought, I'm 68. I just walked 9 kilometers across rough territory. Must be doing okay. Clayton, too. Damien says, I'm looking good. Yeah, well, it's all the monkey glands I inject into myself, Damien. It says I'm currently 1.012 meters above sea level. Emily says, good thing you don't feel old. Oh, I don't. I mean, I've got health issues. I mean, I've got a irregular heartbeat at times, which is handled with medication. And I've got diabetes and high blood pressure, both of which are handled very well by medication. But I don't feel unhealthy. And doing these walks is the start of me getting even healthier. I want to get a lot more energy and I want to lose some weight. And I think the only functional way of doing this is to do videos where I go out and burn calories, which is the hidden agenda behind the walk from wherever it is, Melbourne. And I've only got 3 more walks left to do. I've got from Newport to Seddon to South Kensington, where I go past a giant statue of a Chinese goddess, and then from South Kensington into Melbourne. So I've done more than half of the walks to Melbourne, and I'm looking forward to the next bits. Clayton says, keep forgetting my age, maybe on purpose. Keith says, it scares me that I'm 68. Where did the time go? It went that way. Tom says, I'm looking forward to watching Megan 2.0. Hope it's as good as the original. Yeah, it should be fun. Just set your expectations to the right place and you should have fun with it. Dick says, we were okay with the floods, but we are 2 roads up from the road in the slope. In a row of about a dozen basement flats got completely flooded out. That must be heartbreaking for the people. I know there have been some floods in northern New South Wales where entire towns have got flooded out, and it's just heartbreaking. And then the mold sets in, and it's just the worst. And me says, the walks are great. I find them very meditative. So do I. They're fun. The interesting thing is the first walk I did was 4 kilometers, and I felt a bit knackered at the end of 4 kilometers. And I'd done 4 kilometers in yesterday's walk, and this is all this month. And I didn't feel tired after 4 kilometers. And I thought, I must be getting a bit fitter. Not like muscly fitter, but just endurance fitter. And I'm very happy with that. Damien says, today at the post office, we'll be picking up my imprint bundle. Cool. Yeah, imprint are doing such interesting stuff. I really hope to get a few things from them, including the Carol Baker box set. I've got them on DVD because they released this set on DVD years ago, but the Carol Baker set on Blu-ray I really want. Gethin says, get walking, mate. Even an hour a day will do the world of good. My job as a carer for people with your predicament, granted further on, and elderly, disabled, etc. But my point being, just get out there and do something. Yeah, absolutely, it does. And I'm seeing things I never saw before in my local area. I didn't know that we had Ricali, which are the Australian water rats. They're native water rats. And they mostly live on spiders and snakes and shellfish. And they're bigger than normal rats. They're like this big. First time I saw a Ricali was in Sydney. I was taking the last train back to where I lived. I was about 18 at the time. And I was in the Town Hall station, which is an underground station in Sydney. And down along the tracks is this enormous rat, bigger than any rat I'd ever seen. And I was freaked the fuck out because I'd just seen Willard at the cinemas a few weeks earlier. And so freaked out by this giant fucking rat. And it wasn't until years later that I found out it was a Ricali and they're harmless. Yeah, you don't give them any shit and they'll go you. But for the most part, the Ricali are very shy. They live in mangrove swamps and wetlands and things like that. They're part of the native environment, and I love them. Clayton says, like nutria, yeah, they're hairier than nutria, and they're a totally different species. They came across the land bridge from Asia back during the last ice age, and they found an ecological niche because at the time there was a lot of large megafauna in Australia. And so the megafauna would have killed off any rats that went inland. But the Ricali found an ecological niche along the coastline wetlands. Dick says, my wallet's still getting over that last imprint order, which was the Adventure box sets. Yeah, that was a fantastic set, but yes, I realized it was quite expensive. Clayton says, I shot a nutria in New Mexico, big as a cat, but it was a rat. Yeah. Ramzar says, I'm 67, but on July 20th, I'll be 68 too. Happy early birthday, Ramzar, and many more. Basically, keep on chugging. This walking business is getting addictive for me. Damien says, within 2 years, I'll be retiring from work at 67. Great. I felt bad about retiring. I'll let you know this too. I felt bad about retiring. And then I remembered that I started working when I was 15 full time in factories. And I was heading up around 60. And I thought, I've been working for 45 years straight. I deserve to retire. That's nearly half a century. I should retire. And indeed, I did. There was a redundancy offer. I took it. We paid off the house, all that kind of shit. And then I started YouTube and I've unretired. Tom says, I saw 3 giant rats crawling around subway trucks in Times Square. They figured out how to avoid the third rail. First day I was in New York City, 1998, Tom. Stepped on a dead rat crossing the street. Very New York experience. Ramzar, US $4.99. Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate it. And I appreciate the little dancing figure as well. Keith says, I had a bust up at work age 60, so I walked out. Been retired since. Yeah, there's a change to work culture that I don't know benefits everybody. It's I wouldn't want to go back into a standard job because apart from anything, you've got to get up early and go every day. And you can't structure your day. And one thing I learned doing YouTube is being able to work for yourself and structure your day, even though you're not getting paid a lot, is worth millions. Just being able to say, today I'm not feeling it, but yesterday I did a lot of stuff. That's fine. I can do that. And that flexibility is oxygen to the creative spirit. Gaston says, do I have a camera? I dropped a 4 stone the past year, just going out taking photos. You say that you're seeing stuff you've never seen before. If you go out on these walks, take some photos. I do. I do the video stream, which I then edit and upload. But each walk, I also promise myself I'm going to take 5 street view photos. And I do that. And this video I did yesterday got some great things. I got some pelicans and black swans. I got a whole bunch of cool stuff on the last video. And as I get closer to the city, there are going to be more and more very cool things for me to photograph. Yeah, you won't notice the distance. I didn't really notice the distance that much for the first 3/4 of this walk. But when I hit the bit where I had to do a 2-kilometer detour, That's when it started to hit me. I started to get a little bit tired, and I probably should have had a snack. But I ended up taking a break in the McDonald's, having a small cheeseburger and a bottle of water, and that picked me up. Doug says, we're very similar. Officially retired last year. Inspired by me, I started a YouTube channel. You did, Doug, and you're doing great with it. Kayan says, I hope to retire in 10 years unless I'm 50. Maybe I will change my mind when it comes to it. Find something else to do. Okay, and that's my advice. Find something you're crazily passionate about so that when you do eventually get your gold watch, you move on to making that your passion, make that more of your time. It'll work for you. Henrik says, I'm in Scotland now, but haven't run into any immortal swordsmen. You may well do, because Henry Cavill is remaking Highlander. And I just found out something totally stupid about it this morning. You know who they got to do the Sean Connery role? Russell Crowe. Now, I hope Russell's dropped some weight, because he's going to be more like Falstaff than the Sean Connery character in Highlander. But they're remaking it. Captain Laser says, don't eat the fake Mickey D burgers. It's Soylent Green. Well, it was only just a snack kind of thing, and I really needed to eat something. And I didn't want to just eat a sugar and carb thing. So I did that. Tom says, I walk 3 miles every day. Does me the world of good. Yeah, I can believe that, Tom. Catherine says, I love to get out in that side of the world and hit a wall with my photography. I'd love to do more with it, and I've fallen into caring, but my goal would be to travel the world and take pictures. Yeah, you need to get an EasyJet flight somewhere when you've got a break, Catherine, and just hit another town. There's nothing better for renewing your joie de vivre than hitting a town you haven't been to before. Doug says, yeah, I'm so right. Find your passion. I've never been happier. Glad to hear it, Doug. Keith says, I've heard the thing too is going to be a thing. Let's hope not. Henrik says, Russell is into the mentor characters now, like Connery did in the 80s. Russell is an asshole. I actually know somebody who spent some time with Russell Crowe. And Rusty is not a nice person. And he's not nice in a way that really is unnecessary. Sometimes you got to use lube rather than sandpaper in life. And Russell Crowe reaches for the sandpaper all the time. Ramsey says, I'm walking to my AMC cinemas in the Grove, which is about 1.7 miles away. This is coming Tuesday. It'll be Ballerina and 28 years later. Rewatching 28 days later today. Cool. My local is about a mile away, conservatively. And it's a multiplex, or I could get on a train and go down to the Sun in Yarraville, which I'm going to be walking past next time I do a walk. I've got that far. But yeah, walking to the cinema is not a bad thing. Kane says he's more Russell Emperor Penguin than Russell Crowe. Yeah, I'm not going to fat shame him, but I think if he's going to be an immortal swordsman, he's up on the stakes. Captain Laser says, Doug says, I get a feeling Russell's a prick, and I just confirmed it. Yeah, the person I talked to, yeah. Russell's a jerk, great actor at times, even has comic chops. Favorite Russell movie? The Sum of Us, where he played the gay son of Jack Thompson. Early role, 1990s. Russell Crowe is good in that movie, and it sends such a strong, loving message that I love The Sum of Us. Damien says, my local cinema is only 5 minutes away. Well, you're going to have to walk there and back a few times, Damien, aren't you? DB Cooper says, South Park took the piss out of Russell Crowe with fighting around the world. Keith says, when you have a diabetic eye screening, I walk to the clinic and back 4 miles there, 4 miles back. That's perfectly fine, Keith. I mean, make it useful. I mean, for me, it's useful to do any walk because I'll do a video out of it. And then I don't have to think up anything to do a video about for that channel. So there's lots of walks I can do around Melbourne and around where I live that the channel's going to do fine. And I'll also do driving vlogs with that as well. Clayton says Master and Commander for the best Rusty movie. Our All Romper Stomper, yeah, fair enough. Virtuosity. Virtuosity is the same film as I, Robot. I did a video about that. Crow's a great actor, but a jerk. Yeah, he is. I mean, I'm not knocking the guy's chops as an actor, but I think he's got to the stage where he may be just cashing checks rather than doing interesting projects. And I think there's no reason to be an asshole when you're a millionaire. A lot of them are, but I don't think there's enough reason to be a total prick. When if you stop doing everything you do, you can still live incredibly comfortably for the rest of your life. Harry says, what I think about him is Bud White. Yeah, I mean, LA Confidential, great film. A lot of good Australian actors in there as well. Kian says, he'll always be Russell to me. Keith, you watched Les Mis? I didn't watch Les Mis. His band played Nostrum and Gak. He was a 30-odd foot of grunt is his band. David says, thanks again, Terry. I enjoyed a couple of videos on your other channel. What's it called again? It's called Terry Travels with a Z at the end of it because someone else picked the other name. But yeah, it's a fun channel and I like it. And I'm tempted to do a driving vlog before I finish the walk vlogs. I think I want to get in the car, mount the camera to the windscreen safely, and just talk about shit on that channel. I'll put it here for you anyway, David. Oops, hang on. There you go. And I did it wrong again, but you get the idea. How about you, Jackman? Well, he dumped his wife after having an affair for a number of years with a Broadway actress he was working with. And Deborah Lee Finesse is a fantastic actress, Jackman's ex-wife. A really fine actress. And Jackman, I think, during the previous Trump administration, he was hanging around with Jared and Ivanka a lot. So I don't think he's a good person. Hanging around with oligarchs' children never sends a good signal. Gethin says, just saw 28 weeks later. What was it, 28 years later? 28 weeks later, sorry. Not too bad to be fair, but I think that is because of Robert Carlyle. I realise I'm a bit behind, but there's so many 28-somethings later. Yeah, I'm waiting for 28 fortnights later. Doug says, a guilty pleasure is Rustling Unhinged, playing a psycho. Yeah, that was a interestingly bad film. Clayton says, eat the rich. Yes, but you have to marinate them and then you have to slow cook them. It's the only way to do it. Ken says, skateboards might be a good series idea. I am not getting on a fucking skateboard. There's no way you're getting me on a skateboard except horizontally. There are a number of good skate parks around. But YouTube gets a bit funny when you start shooting video of teenagers. The wrong kind of people do that kind of stuff. Yeah, Jackman, no good. Good actor, reasonable singer, not necessarily a good person. There are better Australian actors. Guy Pearce apparently is a lovely guy. And David Wenham is a fantastic guy from what I hear. There are a number of good Australian actors who are wonderful people. Henrik says, Him's Wild Fun is a falling down knockoff. Yeah, it's got a lot of that same vibe. Terry swims with wildlife. No, because I've actually swum with wildlife, come to think of it. In Port Phillip Bay, right down at the end of the bay, it's a big bay, it's over 100 kilometres long. Once upon a time in the early 90s, I went on a boat tour where they put you in a wetsuit and you get in the water of the bay and swim with dolphins in open water. And the dolphins swim underneath you and frolic around you. You don't get to touch them because you shouldn't touch them. But you get to go in the water and hang off a rope and swim with the dolphins. And I did that. Fucking cold. Even with a wetsuit, I was really freezing cold. And I've got complex PTSD, which gets triggered by being cold. So I went back up on the boat and they gave us hot date scones and coffee to warm us up. And that was the best part of it, was warming up with the hot date scones and coffee. Damien says Richard Roxburgh's nice and friendly. He is. Finally watched Chopper, says Ramsar, with Eric Banner as Mark Chopper Reed. Interesting movie with flashbacks of a lot of different viewpoints. I don't know what's fact and what's fiction. With Chopper Reed, he made some shit up. Some of it was real, some of it wasn't. His Wikipedia page covers most of it. Anthony Deal. Hi, Anthony. I'm interested to see how Russell Crowe plays Hermann Goering in Nuremberg. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I think that may be one that stretches him. Judgment in Nuremberg is such a hard film for the 1960s with the real concentration camp footage. That's such a tough film. I did a video about it on the channel a couple of years ago. A fantastically good film, but so fucking hard to watch. Gethin says, many sharks around you? Yeah, there's sharks in the bay. But we eat game. There's a thing called gummy sharks, which get caught, and we eat them as fish and chips. We make them into what's called flake, which is a kind of fish and chips. You have flake and chips, which is the most common fish to eat around Melbourne at a fish and chip shop. It's good fish. Not the best fish in the world, but it's good, honest fish. So sharks don't eat us here. We eat sharks. Doug says, love Guy Pearce. Jack Irish is underrated. Jim, yeah, the Jack Irish series with Guy Pearce. Fantastic. Henrik says, Jackman goes back to his theatre roots, though, singing, dancing on stage. Yeah. Keith says they're kind of remaking Judgment in Europe, but it seems so. I think it's one of those times when you need to underline the lesson. And you need to underline why it's important not to do things like that. And it's totally stupid that we have to. But if it's a good, honest production, good, honest actors, good, honest stage values, good script, good direction, I don't mind them remaking it. Clayton says, Guy Pearce is a hoot in Priscilla. He is. Priscilla is just such an iconic Australian film. I actually saw it in Broken Hill in a cinema. And part of the film was filmed in Broken Hill as they're going towards the desert. And half of the people in the audience were extras in the scenes in Broken Hill who went to the movies to see themselves on the screen. David says, I agree with that film. I first saw TV in New Zealand. I had to go outside and threw up. Yeah, Judgment at Nuremberg is not a film you watch lightly. It's not a film you watch for entertainment. It can't be. Yesterday, I just watched a good YouTube video on how they denazified Germany. And it wasn't easy. There was a lot of stuff they had to do that was human rights violations almost, but they denazified Germany in 5 years. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to do with the USA, but I think people will be taking notes on that. Doug says, are you hopeful for the new Superman movie? It looks like it might be okay. I've got faith in James Gunn. I think he's a good filmmaker. He knows genre filmmaking better than almost anybody. I think it's going to work because it's balancing. I mean, he's good at balancing the serious stuff with the comedy and the humor. I think the characters and the actors are right for it. And yeah, I am looking forward to it and I'm hopeful for it. Henry says, Guy's fantastic, but don't know why they didn't hire an older actor in Prometheus. Yeah, Prometheus was shit. All of those Ridley Scott alien films are not my favorite movies, to be honest with you. Keith says, I thought Montgomery Clift was amazing in Judgment in Nuremberg. He was. incredibly good. One of his best roles, and it's like a small role as somebody who was injured by the Germans and the Nazis. Sorry, I shouldn't say Germans, I should say Nazis. And he nails that role so powerfully. Montgomery Clift was just such an incredible actor. Guess said, I've had swordfish, but wouldn't get shark around here. It's big news if one is spotted in the waters around these parts. Yeah, well, we've got a number of them. The thing is, it's the sharks you don't see that you've got to worry about. But for us, we know they're around. We know that you don't go into an area where there are sharks and seals wearing a black wetsuit because they're going to think you're a seal, which is a mistake that was made in northern Tasmania a number of times over the last decade. Yeah, you just, when I was a kid, we used to go to the beach in Sydney along the beautiful beaches, not all the touristy ones, but further down. And there was always a shark bell, and there'd be a shark spotter in a tower. And sometimes there were even light planes that would fly up and down the coast looking for sharks. Shark gets spotted, they ring the shark bell, and everyone gets out of the water. We had that all through my childhood. And he says, Peacemaker was fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2 of Peacemaker. Season 1 was a banger. I think I've got it on DVD. But season 2, I'm looking forward to. Ramsar said, reading and reminiscing in a new paperback, Cinema in the 70s, 101 Iconic Movies by John Foote. Very good reading and reflection. Cool. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of hidden gems. I haven't even unearthed a lot of the cool movies of the 1970s. Clayton says, you turned me on to the film Newsfront with Bill Hunter. Excellent, thanks. Newsfront's my favourite Australian movie because I actually mentioned this to Armin when we were driving around on Saturday. It reflects the better nature of being a man in Australia. You don't put up with bullshit. You don't put up with bullies. You don't go for the money when you know it's morally wrong. All of that's in that movie. It's the opposite side. There's a bell curve of Australian masculinity. And one end you've got Wake in Fright, and one end you've got Newsfront. Both are equally valid and equally true, but most of us live in the middle of it. Captain Lazy says, I think the shark bill would give me anxiety later in life versus a cold. No, I mean, the shark bills were there to help us, and you knew just to get the fuck out of water. And the shark bills saved a lot of lives. And if people were struggling, there were lifeguards as well, so they would go out there and help people who were struggling. In fact, as soon as the shark bell goes off, there's 4 or 5 lifeguards in the water just helping people out. Gethin says, any opinions on the Final Destination's Bloodline? I want to see it. I haven't. I've seen all the other Final Destination movies. But I might wait till it comes out on physical media or streaming and then watch it with Sal because she'll watch it. And we might well watch it together. Damien said, I saw Newsfront when it first came out and the cinema in Perth was full. Good. It's a solid movie. Clayton says, I've seen Newsfront a couple of times in the last few months. Wake in Fright also. Yeah, they are polar opposites, but they're both true. Henrik says, haven't seen Razorback. Any good? Yeah, it's a good 1970s monster movie. I've actually got the 4K because Umbrella sent it to me. And it looks fantastic. It looks a bit music video-y, but it's a lot of fun. In fact, I've got a friend who helped build the giant pig for Razorback, and he had it hanging up in his lounge room above the fireplace. It was made of foam and bits of pig bristle and stuff like that, but it hung above his fireplace for a long time. Doug says, I was drinking in a pub in Melbourne years ago. Bill Hunter was there. I didn't want to bug him, but he seemed like a nice guy. Everything I've heard about Bill Hunter says he was a nice guy. Dedicated actor, didn't overplay his skill and talent. Good ensemble worker too. He worked well with everybody else he was in movies with. Bill Hunter was a beloved Australian actor. Dean says, live streaming, what a pleasant surprise. Thank you. Keith F, £5. After swim with the dolphins, grab a coffee. Thank you, Keith. £5, that's like $300 Australian, isn't it? Not really, mate. Thank you anyway, Keith. Captain Laser, I like the cinematography of Razorback. I read the actors hated it, waiting for the smoke effects. Smoke effects are so uncertain, which is why people use CGI smoke as much as they can now. A little real smoke, and then a lot of CGI where you can control it. It's like I once tried to do a video, it didn't come out, around a fire pit, and the smoke kept blowing in my eyes, so I gave up that idea. Dean says, how much time is left? Half an hour, Dean. 30 minutes. Yeah, it's the director who made Highlander, Russell Mulcahy. Police Academy films 1 to 10. I'm not sure I could do that. I get bored and want to watch something else. I'd probably watch 3 of them and go, screw this, I'm going to watch The Umbrellas of Cherbourg just to cleanse my palate. Airplane? Yeah, Airplane would be fun. I've actually got Airplane 1 and 2 on DVD. Don't have them on Blu-ray, but I got them on DVD, which is good enough. And the second one's fun too, in spite of Shatner. Tell you what I am looking forward to. Vulgar Pleasure. The new Police Squad movie. With Naked Gun movie with Liam Neeson. I'm kind of looking forward to that as a vulgar pleasure. And I will go to see it at my local multiplex. Floyd says there have been rumours of a remake of the Thing franchise in development with Blumhouse, but details are scarce. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest with you. It sounds like a cash grab to me. I like a lot of the things Blumhouse does, but do we need it? I'm not sure if there are 10 Police Academy movies, Lee, and I'm not inclined to look it up, to be honest with you. Doug's looking forward to the new Naked Gun Liam Neeson. Yeah, it's comedy chops. Yeah, on the other channel, Liam Neeson actually ruined one of my videos because I couldn't go up onto the pier at Altona because I was getting it ready for a Liam Neeson action film where he was going to drive a sports car up and down the pier. So Liam Neeson actually ruined one of my travel videos. It's all there on the channel. Henry says, do I miss Steve Guttenberg in films? No, not really. I think he was a decent actor. He seems to be a decent person too. Because when Los Angeles had the fires, he was in one of the areas affected by the big fires in Los Angeles. And he was out there in the community just handing out water and helping people and giving out information when the information networks crashed. So from everything I hear, Steve Gutenberg's a solid guy, a mensch. And so I wish him well, whatever he does. Let's see. Do films, music, stuff in general have a same staying power anymore? Nothing seems to stay around too long. There's some hype that comes out and then it seems to be quickly forgotten. Yeah, I can see your point, KM, because I'm looking through old newspaper ads from the 1960s. And something like South Pacific ran for years in one cinema because there was no other delivery system for an incredibly widescreen movie with lots of songs, very popular. So people would go back to see it again and again. But now we've got streaming, we've got physical media, we've got traditional linear television, we've got movies, and we've got IMAX as well. Things don't stay around because people won't go back and watch them again and again the way they did when there wasn't another option. And so you just got to ride that wave. If you really love something, grab it on physical media because you don't know when it's going to disappear, when somebody's going to censor it or change it. Physical media is the anchor point for cinema in a lot of ways. Floyd says there's no official The Thing 2 movie. That's a direct sequel to the 1982 film currently in production or scheduled for release in the near future. Okay, thanks, Floyd. Lee says, will Neeson be as deadpan as Nielsen? Yeah, it looks like he is. Ramzar says, time to rewatch Jaws, which was released here June 20th, 1975. Remember going to watch it twice back then, and it made me jump the most was all the girls in the theatre screaming. Yeah, it's getting a big buzz because it's a Spielberg movie, apart from anything, and it's a big film, and a lot of people are scared of going in the water. But I saw it, and it was scary the first time I saw it. Second time I watched it for the cinematography and things. Best scenes aren't about the shark. The best scenes are talking about the USS Indianapolis on the boat, and Quint just telling that story, and Robert Shaw just nailing it so fantastically. Captain Lazy says Jurassic Park series for a binge watch looks easy but a slog. Am I going to watch a new one? Yeah, I'll watch a new one. It's a roller coaster movie. I'll watch it. Dean says Liam Neeson is Frank's son. Doesn't make much sense considering Neeson's actually older than Nielsen when he took up the part. It's with that kind of movie, it doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be just put down your premise and then put a whole bunch of jokes on it. It's going to work. Believe me, it's going to work. Lee says Gutenberg was also a totem of my childhood. Such great films recently, not so much. Yeah, I think he actually turned up on a couple of talk shows, like late night talk shows, and seemed there's genuine love for the guy out there, and he's doing other things now. He may have made his bucks and decided he didn't want to put up with Hollywood's bullshit. I wish him well. He seems to be living a good life. Gesson says opinions on Zac Efron. I think it's dropped off the radar a bit, but pretty boy actors go two ways. Their looks fade and they die out, or they become reasonable character actors. Zac Efron's at that junction right now. I don't know which way he's going to go. Doug says, here in Adelaide, the film Bedroom Mazurka famously ran for years. I watched Bedroom Mazurka a month or so ago, and it's a fun sex comedy. It's silly and it's very broad, but it is, sweet fun. Keith says, in general, I dislike sequels and really dislike inferior remakes. I think everybody does. There are sometimes reasons to make sequels. I mean, I'll give you the arch example. The Two Jakes is an honest sequel to Chinatown because it continues the story of Faye Dunaway's character's daughter, and it continues the story of Jake Gitters, and it does work as a sequel, but that is the exception rather than the rule. Yes, it says because we talked about Mr. Wolverine's musical career, there should never been a second Alien movie. Keith, Alien, the original Alien, cut to the core, stripping off all of the extraneous stuff, is a haunted house movie. At its core, you go somewhere and there's a boogeyman that will kill you. That's what Alien is. All the mythology put around it. I've never really loved an Alien movie. Not the first one, not the second one, not any of the sequels and remakes and reboots and spin-offs. I'll watch them, but they're not something about which I'm passionate. Kane says, Jules still one of my favourite Spielberg movies. It showed in cinemas here and it did really well. Nice, tense, tight thriller. Script by Richard Matheson, I think it was. So good provenance too. Taker 68 says, Zac Efron is good in The Iron Claw. Yeah, I'm not that keen on wrestling movies, but I'll believe you on that. He can act. He does have skills. Henrik says, I think Charlie Sheen's very funny. He does the Nielsen straight man shtick wonderfully. He did. But because of his various addictions and weaknesses, and it is a disease, so I'm not going to shame him for his drug addictions. His skills have dropped. People don't work with him because of what he did and who he was. I wish him well, but I don't think there's going to be a Charlie Sheen renaissance anytime. Dick says, best thing about Jaws is Murray Hamilton, who played the mayor. Yeah, Murray Hamilton, great character actor. One of those mid-tier ones that shows up unexpectedly in 1960s movies. And you remind yourself, shit, Murray Hamilton was a good actor. Doug says, love Two Jokes, but it doesn't get much love. No, I did a video about it, Doug. It's just got a 4K release in the US, which I think is honest and it's good that it does. And I think it's worthy of it. So I'm very, very glad that Two Jokes got a 4K release. Floyd says, I need Guillermo to make his adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's In the Mountain of Madness. Guillermo could do it. I saw the trailer for his Frankenstein adaptation that's coming up. It looks gothic as fuck. It's a nice companion piece to Robert Eggers' Nosferatu in a way. But yeah, Guillermo's Frankenstein is going to be something special to look out for. I think it's coming out later this year. But Guillermo del Toro never disappoints. Eric says, Color Out of Space I enjoyed. Yeah, but Richard Stanley, the director, is an abusive person. So I'm less in love with it than otherwise, but I think it's an honest adaptation. The Color Out of Space, and Nick Cage does a fantastic job in it. Captain Laser says, I like 1941. What do I think? It had moments. It had funny moments. It was incredibly large for the story it was trying to tell. But, yeah, I think Belushi made that movie, to be honest with you. Catherine says, ever watched Little Britain? Not one for the channel because it wouldn't be good for YouTube sponsors, but what do I think? I've seen Little Britain. I saw it when it came out, and it's catchphrase comedy. You know, everything's about the catchphrase. It doesn't have any depth to it, and the people who made it have kind of disowned it as well because there is a lot of racist stuff in there. There is a lot of sexist stuff and gendered stuff that doesn't really land well. Incredibly popular at the time, but for me, catchphrase comedy isn't smart comedy. Smart comedy has a lot more nuance and depth than just going back to the same character using the same catchphrase and then you roll something off that. I think it's lazy comedy. Dean says, movies produced in Australia and New Zealand, what's the major difference aside from budget and incentives? We don't own the market the way Hollywood does. We are making incredibly good small films. And Umbrella releases them on physical media. Things like The Waves of Madness, which just came out, which is a horror movie done as a side-scrolling black and white film on a green screen. They produced 500 copies of it and sold out like that. And the maker of it, Jason Trost, is happy that he got that burst from it. And it lets him make his next movie. But our problem is lack of resources and lack of markets. America is still the elephant in the room and the gorilla in the room. We are making good films. There are just so many of them, and I'll mention them when they'll come out on physical media. A lot of the good ones, like the Mugai, good honest horror film with an Indigenous background and Indigenous filmmakers. Did no real business, but it's fantastically good. But we are not America. We haven't owned cinema for the last 100 years the way Hollywood has. And that's a pity because we are telling really good stories. Yeah, I agree, Gethin. There is a lot of catchphrase comedy on SNL, and SNL is at its best when it ditches that, and it does something topical, but also totally off the wall original. Rams are already scheduled for 2 IMAX movies. F1 the movie, and How to Train Your Dragon. I sit in the last row in recliners with a private bathroom a few steps away and coffee. Yeah, why not? Indulge yourself. You deserve it. Keith F says the Fast Show was catchphrase comedy, but I still think it's funny now. Yeah, because it didn't punch downwards. The Fast Show did not punch downwards the way that Little Britain did. And people like Paul Whitehouse are comedy geniuses. Let's see, we've got 15 minutes. Anything anybody wants to say in the last 15 minutes? Ask me anything. We'll use this as the Ask Me Anything section of things. And my watch is just charged, so I'll put it back on. This has been a good live stream, guys. I'm tempted to do it every fortnight rather than every month. What do you reckon? I'll put it up earlier, of course, than this one was. But I'm tempted to do it every 2 weeks, not because I got super chats, but because I'm having a good time. Take a 68. What's the meaning of life? To go like this to death is the meaning of life. Luna's gone to have a nap. She was up here on the desk before I started the live streaming. But because I'm not letting her out, she will go and have a nap somewhere. If Sal's opened the bedroom door, she'll nap on the bed. But if she hasn't, she'll be on the couch in the front room. Yeah, David Cooper, Luna's just napping. Keith says, have I got a movie guilty pleasure, one that shouldn't like but love? Any number of them. There are just so many of them. I mean, I like things like Bedroom Berserker and those 1976 comedies. And the Ginger trilogy with Sherry Cafaro, which are titillating spy movies, but they're also kinky as hell. A lot of vulgar pleasures. Yep, Dean, she's a smart cat. She's our baby and we love her. And if Sal's feeling unwell, she will snuggle down next to her on the couch and just fall asleep there to keep her company. What do I think about Vinegar Syndrome wanting retailers to stop having imprint copies? What are they going to do about it? Too bad. If imprint want to sell overseas, they will. And they sell directly. They market incredibly well. They've got an enormous fan base. And they do a very, very good product. So Vinegar Syndrome can whinge all its likes, but it's not going to make a difference because Imprint's an Australian company with Australian laws. They don't have to kowtow to the empire. Henry says, what do I think about Argento's work? I like Argento's work. I did a video about Suspiria and about how it took me 30-odd years to actually watch all of Suspiria. So, I like it. I think he's an original mind and really weird guy, but an original director. Clayton says, just watched The Hitchhiker's Guide recently. Yeah, that was kind of fun. I think the radio adaptation is the best adaptation of Hitchhikers. Dick says, Roxy has joined Carol and gone to bed. Yeah, hi, Roxy. Clayton says, Profundo Rosso was good. Excellent, rather. Yeah, it was. And I have these moments when I watch a lot of Gialli in a row. And then I go, I'm not going to watch Gialli for a while. But yeah, you can get dug in such a rabbit hole. I want to watch Lizard and Woman's Skin. Is just a mad giallo with Stanley Baker in it and Florinda Balkan. It got a release from Imprint. Crazy movie. DB says, live stream every 2 weeks. Signing off now. DB, thanks for being part of things. I appreciate it. Live streams are nothing if it isn't for the chat. Eric says, Brian De Palma's early films are very giallo, right? Yes, Sisters is very giallo. Even things up to Body Double. And here's somebody creeping in. Hello, Sally Jane. She's come in. She's woken up.
Showered.
She showered. Everything's for Archie. And we're 10 minutes from the end. Is that a Temu hat, Dean? Yes, it is.
I've got a movie merchandise t-shirt.
You have your Frog Brothers t-shirt from Lost Boys.
I was going to say, who knows what's that from, but yeah.
Oh,
Bye, everyone.
okay. Sale has emerged. All these box sets of obscure films that are available now, do you think that the packaging and presentation are better than the actual films? No, when I review them, okay, and that's a good question. Thanks for that one. I try to make sure the movie is preeminent in my review. Yes, the box sets and the packaging and the extras and the art cards and the posters and the merch are fun and great. But when I'm reviewing them, one of the things I really try hard to do is bring it back to the movie. The movie is the reason all this other stuff exists. And when I'm reviewing them, for me, it's a bit like talking about the lingerie, but not the person in the lingerie. You've got to go back to there's something at the core of this that matters. Ramsar says Brian De Palma made some great movies, mid 70s, late 80s. He did. Dick says hello, Sol. And hello, Dick says Sol. Hell Comes to Frogtown is, yeah, it is. Anthony, apologies, this has been asked of you before. Do I have a special criterion if I wish to update from Blu-ray to 4K? Availability, if I've got something on Blu-ray and I find a $15 or $20 4K and I like the movie a lot, I'll get it. Some 4Ks I get sent as review copies, and I feel incredibly privileged for that, and I acknowledge that privilege. But it depends on what's available. I will search around. I will look through the 4K at JB Hi-Fi, and if something's a really exceptional movie, and I've got it on DVD or Blu-ray, and I've got the money to do it, I usually do it when they have sales. So you get buy one get one free, or buy two get one free, or 30% off, something like that. I'll get it on 4K. I've got like one row of 4Ks at the moment, but that's the criterion for the upgrade. Frogtown simply crazy, says Dean. It is. Keith says, just want to say a while back, I sent you £5. I nearly sent you £400 by mistake. Be careful, Keith, is all I can say. 400 quid would be nice, but I don't want people doing it by accident if they do. Please be careful when you do super chats. I'm very grateful for them. I feel the love when you do it. I feel the love when you chat. But don't overextend yourself, please, anybody. Clayton says, just saw Hell Comes from Frogtown. Again, thanks for the suggestion. It's a mad little film, and I love it. Gethin says, I really appreciate your live stream tonight because I was feeling rather... Sorry, I apologize for this. I did say the name. I apologize. Somebody said, I really appreciate your live stream tonight because I was feeling rather lonely. Just speaking to you makes me feel good. Look, anytime I'm doing a live stream, everybody is welcome. If you're an asshole, we'll turf you out. But if you just need the company and you want to chat about movies and you want to be part of something, that's why we have the channel. That's why we have live streams. Floyd says, yeah, looking forward to his interpretation material and Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Victor and Jacob Elordi as his creation. Absolutely. Brent says, excellent review you did on the Shaw Shock box. Just got my copy and love the movies. It's a great little set, that one. Keith says, 400 quid, I nearly called the Heart Police. Dick says, I'm worth every penny. Well, yeah, and 1 penny at a time would do. Any other films out there in the Frogtown genre? There are a lot of things that Empire Films and Charles Band did. If you're looking things up, Dean, look up Charles Band's work. Things like Zone Troopers and Doll Man and Trances, all that kind of stuff is there. And it's perfectly wonderful stuff. And you should dive into it. 1980s VHS era Empire Films, Charles Band stuff is just marvelous fun. Things like Sorority Babes at the Slimeball Bolorama. Classic. I love it. In fact, I've already put people onto that one. A friend of mine bought it when we were talking about it on VHS. I had it in the fanzine, I reviewed it. And a friend of mine bought Sorority Babes at the Slimeball Bolorama. Ramsar says, once a fortnight gets my vote and I'll pitch in my regular $4.99. Thank you very much, Ramsar. Appreciate that. Ralph says, and slightly better the hidden. Yeah, don't bother with the hidden too. But the hidden works as it's kind of science fiction-y action film. Lots of splody things and shoot 'em ups. Good film. Good call there, Ralph. Hang on, I've got an open bottle, so I shouldn't open that. You get very thirsty doing live streams, but it's worth it. Anthony says, thank you, Terry. Really appreciate your insight. As I tend to spend too much of my credit card upgrading to 4K, which can be a dangerous game. Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. Here's my advice. Maybe make 4K like birthday present things, in the sense that if it's something really special, get it. Most things look great on Blu-ray. Blu-ray is a good format. Blu-ray sparkles and shines. But 4K is, I mean, I've got things like Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon and movies like that and the African Queen on 4K because they're at up here level. And I think with 4K, there's a lot of really prosaic movies that are going to fade in 5 years' time that are put out on 4K. Be selective, be strategic with your 4Ks. And a lot of things on Blu-ray get very cheap when there are sales on. So, like I said, be very strategic. Make it special. Dick says, Robot Jocks. I like Robot Jocks. It's fun. Kane says, reading the box sets. I've been checking out Giallos lately. I was considering buying some box sets. But to be honest, most of them are one-watch films for me. If I can find them for free on YouTube, that's good enough. Everybody has their own level. Things like Lizard and Woman Skin, I like because it's just, there's your mainstream of Giallo. Lizard with a Woman Skin is way over to one side. It's mad. And it works. So that's why I like having it on a Blu-ray. Gavin says, any opinions of true crime stuff on Netflix? Sally watches it. I don't tend to. I think it's a little bit too morbid for me. Kind of going over that kind of stuff. Fictionalizing it, yeah, I don't mind. But there's a morbidity to true crime because some of the victims and their families are still around in a lot of these true crime things. And I want to respect their trauma by not indulging in that. A lot of other people have a different viewpoint, and I respect their viewpoints, but that's just where I am. Dick says, The Caller with Malcolm McDowell. I haven't seen that one. And Ralph says, Mindhunter on Netflix. I think Sal's watched some Mindhunter, but I haven't. I'm too busy finding the stuff for the next few videos. Keith says, Night, have a good to have your company. Happy to be here and happy to have everybody's company all across this clay and granite planet. Just having all these people chatting about movies at a ridiculous time in the morning for me and a ridiculous time at night for them. There's something magical and special about this that we haven't had previously in human history. And it always blows my mind. When I was a kid, computers filled up rooms, and now you can put one on your thumbnail, like there. We live in a magical era. And even though there are dark forces working against us and working against the rule of law and working against the freedom of people to be who they are, in spite of that, there's some good stuff out here. There's some good stuff happening. They're making good movies. There are good people standing up to tyranny. There are good people standing up to cruelty. There are good people standing up to Russell Crowe. So we still have a good world in spite of the people who are shitting in the pool. Too much of me is never enough, Doug. If you were in person with me, you might not think so. Damien, you have a great day too, mate. And me, thanks a lot. Clayton, screw the oligarchs. No, they just cry like babies if you do. And we've got another 20 seconds and then I'm out of here. So we really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast, our time has passed, and we must end our show. Ramsar says, Mindhunter on Netflix is fantastic, based on a true crime book. Yeah, I hear good things about it, but it ain't my jam. I did buy Blood and Black Lace on Blu-ray. I think your review. Yeah, I did review it. The call is great. Taker, Dick, everybody. I'll catch you later. Take care of yourselves and have a good night. Have a good day tomorrow, or have a good day today. Whatever you're doing. I'll catch you later.